The odds on none of us wearing even an ounce of blue is unbelievable.
Crazy.
It's kind of like a drab Thursday, but we got exciting hockey action to talk about. And look, guys, usually you get a bump when you make a coaching change, but that could be 2 or 3 games. For the Red Wings now, they've got something going here.
Well, you think about Detroit going 7 straight wins after the start that they had was probably not anybody would predict that. You talk about a coaching bump, they got that. But not a lot has really changed, in my opinion, there. But what has changed is they're scoring more. If you look at the stats there, goals against, save percentages, all the things, one thing that's really bounced up high for them is the power play. And when the power play gets hot with the players that they have,
22% up.
Can make a huge difference there. So they're scoring more goals. Can they sustain the offense at a high clip that they are right now? Because if they can, then they're going to win more games than they were before. I don't know if that's sustainable, if that's realistic, especially coming down the stretch, the last 40 games, when everything gets tighter. But the Detroit Red Wings, we've been waiting a long time for them to have this kind of run, and they got the players to do it. If they can get the goaltending, let's see what they can do.
They're up 1.5 goals per game. I mean, that's a monster number.
That's a lot.
In the NHL. We've been hearing about these 3 teams, right? Buffalo, Ottawa, Detroit. Who's going to take the step, PK? And maybe it's Detroit.
Well, Detroit has to take the step for me. They're too talented. They've been going at it now for a couple of years. They got a young core group. We understand they got skill. We know they got skill. We know that their power play is going to go up and down. But for me, it's going to be between the neutral zone and in key moments in games defensively, the discipline within their structure. They have to show that step and that growth in their game too, and especially down the stretch. So the hardest part of the season for them is just around the corner. It hasn't come yet. So they're going to be really tested down the stretch again like they were last year. They got to respond. Their fate was in their hands last year. They didn't get it done. They got to do it again this year. They got to get back on it.
They got to get the goals under 3. I mean, I'm looking at the stat
too many goals against.
Just too many goals against there to be a realistically make the playoffs. So
because you're not going to outscore everybody. And
you're not going to outscore your mistakes for 40 games when the things get really super tight.
Let's keep it real. This point of the season, for the top teams, these are like the dog days of the season. They're not. You look at Florida Panthers; they're in gear 3 right now. They're not good. They'll ramp it up a little bit, but. You know, so they got to do it consistently down the stretch. I got to see that.
All right, speaking of Florida, Tuesday night they were in New Jersey, a broadcast on ESPN+. Perhaps you caught the Jack Hughes love affair. Oh, my God, PK, enough.
I'm just doing my job. I'm just doing my job.
Let's talk about the Panthers. There's a lot of fight in those kitty cats.
Oh, man. You know, and this is what I love about watching Florida. We spoke to Paul Maurice before the game, and he's not worried about his team because guys like Matthew Tkachuk know to take the temperature of the game and understand that in an 82-game season, you can't play that way every night. But if you want to win the game, it's got to be a chess match. And every now and then, you got to know when to ramp up the physicality, and things got to boil over a little bit. And, you know, the Florida Panthers walk away with their first win of the season against the New Jersey Devils. They lost 2 back-to-back, and to me... That's what I'm talking about, Leaves. Come on.
This is great. Have you guys seen this? This is
awesome. I did see
hard,
that.
but make it sports.
Did see that.
I mean, that is so
good.
That
is good. That is good.
That is so realistic. That is so well done. It's a good site to follow.
Wow.
Mess, what about you on Florida here?
Well, I think Florida, for me, after winning the Stanley Cup last year, being in that situation before PK,
you know what, you guys.
Here we go.
Well, they played the clip in the teaser to come under the show, and I know it piqued his interest. And here he goes.
It's a long season to get back to the playoffs, and that's what they're all got. Their eyes are on getting back to the playoffs and having another run to win another Stanley Cup. And how they're going to do that is by continue to be rested, stay away from injuries, and managing their time. And not so much physically, PK, it's more in the mental side of it because there's so much pressure playing for 2 months in the playoffs all the way to the Stanley Cup. And so they can get the players rested physically and mentally throughout the regular season. They're not worried about where they finish. They know they can beat anybody. They got to be healthy going into the playoffs there, and they're going to give themselves a great chance to win again because the players that they pick up, give credit to the management and the coaching staff. Wow, these guys have come into the Florida Panthers. And as Tkachuk said last week, they're doing it the Florida way, the Panther way now.
Yep.
And they've assimilated themselves perfectly into that lineup there, and it doesn't look like they've missed. And they lost some great players that played really key roles for that team.
Lundell, yes.
All those guys. So I'm not taking my eyes off the Panthers going into the playoffs this year. They're going to be the team. If you want to win a Stanley Cup this year, you're going to have to go through the Panthers.
Kaplanator, there she is.
Go.
Let's go.
Apparently, there's a chill in
What's
the
up,
air in
PK
Sunrise.
and crew?
Yep.
It's only 70 degrees down there. It's freezing up here. Let's stay with Florida.
It was windy. It was windy.
Oh, it was windy.
It was not
Stop it.
beach weather.
I don't want to
Yeah.
hear that.
Yeah, your
It's
hair looks
freezing
great
here.
still. I don't know how you do it. It's not the wind tunnel that is
Thank you.
Carolina. The Panthers have given us nothing to believe they won't be right in the mix to defend their cup this season. So how has Paul Maurice managed the squad maybe differently coming off their Stanley Cup final appearance?
Yeah, Paul Maurice told us he called a bunch of guys over the summer who have won a Stanley Cup, and consistently they all told him the same thing. It's going to take until at least Christmas for your guys to get going. And Paul has noticed a different energy to start the season, a bit lull. He said on the bench there just hasn't been as much chatter as there typically is, and he's also really conscientious as a coach. He's like, I don't want to be too smiley or too happy around the team because I don't want them to be complacent. Now, earlier in the year, they were playing a lot of loose games. They were big blowouts either way. He loves where they're at now because it's tight defensively. And he said, we're dumping a lot of pucks in because that's how we know we're going to win in the playoffs. He also doesn't think that they're going to take a run in the standings or run away with it in the regular season. And part of that's just by their schedule. They still have 8 back-to-backs left, and they rarely catch teams on the second half of the back-to-back. The fact that Paul Maurice knew all those stats by heart tells us they have a little bone to pick with the schedule makers as well.
Oh, yeah. The schedule has Detroit in town tonight, and the Red Wings are running right now since they made the coaching change away from Newsy Lalonde, and Todd McClellan's done obviously a great job. What's been the biggest change, you think, with the new head man behind the bench?
Yeah, so Tom McClellan himself has been fired 4 different times. So he was really careful when we spoke this morning to point out, hey, nothing I say is an indictment on Derek Lalonde. He's a hell of a coach. But consider this, guys. Dylan Larkin is the longest tenured member of this team. He has only ever played for a first-time head coach. So Tom McClellan comes in with so much experience. He took over this group and he noticed their battery, their energy had completely died out. So he needs to restore that. So much of that happens in these practices. We saw it at morning skate today. His mentality is, hey, if you don't get one, just get back in line. Don't stand there back in line. Go do it again. And that creates urgency and intensity. He also said this team needs some directness. You saw it with the way that he handled Justin Holl after last game. He had a bad game. He wasn't afraid to say it. And he said, trust me, he wasn't the only guy that had a bad game, but I had conversations with every single one of them, whether it was a sit-down meeting with me or a skate-by. So communication and directness has also been key.
Sam Reinhart, second in the league in goals last season with 57. And if you thought it was a blip on the radar, it's not, because he's currently second in goals scored this season with 27. So, Callie, what stands out to you about his ability to put the puck in the net, and so consistently now these last 2 years?
Yeah, Leaves, as you mentioned, if you start from the beginning of last year to now, him and Austin Matthews are tied for the most goals with 84. Obviously, Austin Matthews has missed some time, but we constantly hear Matthews' name. We don't hear Reinhart's name enough and what he does for this Florida Panthers team. He's deadly on the power play. He's been good in the playoffs for them, and there's been no lull for him. Sometimes you come in after winning a Stanley Cup, and we talked about that a little bit with Florida and their play. He continues to produce for them, and you look down their lineup right now, and they're 4-5-1 in those last 10 games, and guys like Verhaeghe, Tkachuk, and Barkov, they've dipped a little bit. 1 goal in their last 10 or 12, respectively. And Reinhart's the one who continues to produce. So his leadership, too, in the room. I talked to Paul Maurice earlier this morning, and he mentioned to me, he goes, he's a quiet guy. He doesn't talk much, but his knowledge of the game is unmatched. He goes, when things are going good or I want to get a pulse on the team, I go to him first, and he lets me know what's going on and what he sees on the ice. So he respects him not only as a player, but almost as a coach as well.
Florida is among the most entertaining teams to watch in the NHL, but the boys here on the desk, they were just saying they're excited to see Detroit tonight, and all of a sudden, after making the change from Newsy Lalonde, who we like and respect a lot, to Todd McClellan, the Red Wings have gone 7-2. Power play is lethal. They're scoring a goal and a half more per game. So are you buying what you're seeing from Detroit right now, or is this just the traditional coaching change bump? Can they make the playoffs?
I definitely think they can make the playoffs. Do I see them continuing on a 7-2 clip the rest of the season as they had under Todd McClellan? I don't think so. I definitely think they were underperforming the start of the season. This is a team that just missed the playoffs last year, who obviously came into this year and was hoping to have another year of experience to be better, and for whatever reason under Lalonde, that didn't happen. And we all know as a new coach comes in, everybody's trying to prove themselves. From the top guys to the guys that are on the fourth line, you're trying to prove yourself to a new coach. Todd McClellan's come in, he's been demanding, their power play is clicking. But what's most impressive for me is their power play is clicking. But as you know, PK, Masses, those guys on the power plays, once your power play clicks, that trickles into 5-on-5. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, your top guys have confidence. They feel better 5-on-5. They're willing to make those plays. They're producing offensively. And I think we're seeing that power play translate to more offense 5-on-5.
The other takeaway from what Callie's saying, what's on the screen right now, the Red Wings are 4 points out of that last playoff spot. Columbus Blue Jackets are in the playoff right now. That's unbelievable. That's a great story there. But I digress. Callie, when I travel with you, people are constantly saying to you, you look like you could still play the game. You must get that all the time. And on Saturday, on the ice at Madison Square Garden, there you were, playing the game, the 2025 Alumni Classic, Rangers Islanders.
Come on.
And let's see.
Nope.
Where is he?
Oh,
no.
I'm out there.
Oh, Callie, nice.
That barely hit the back of the net. Brother.
5-hole,
There
too.
it is.
Dude, look how big are the shoulder
fan
pads
on it.
he's
Always
wearing.
goes in
Shoulders
once you
look
fan on it.
Callie,
I'm just waiting to play a game against the alumni for the New Jersey Devils, you know?
Hey, Callie, hold on. I'll give
I miss walking around PK.
Exactly. Hold on. No, I'll give him one.
Yeah.
One game in Tampa. I'll give him one.
Right.
Callie comes down the wing. And Callie, did I have a bad gap or not? I don't know if I got caught. Puck went out. Forwards turned it over as usual. Callie picks it up in the neutral zone.
I don't know what happened. I used my speed to the outside. That's all,
Callie
PK.
picks
You
it
couldn't
up in
keep
the
up
neutral
with
zone.
me.
He's high-stepping around the dot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, Callie's going to the outside. So I fake it. Callie goes inside, outside, and he's gone. I turn around. I'm like, what the? And then he comes by after, and he looks at me, gives me this look, and he's like, and goes to the bench. One of the only times I'd ever been walked in Tampa, and it was Ryan Callahan who did it.
Good job, Callie.
Attaboy, Callie.
Go look it up on YouTube. I watch it all the time.
It's not
beautiful.
on YouTube, Callie.